Live started.
That's fine. But it wasn't fine.
We are live.
Yeah. We are live.
Okay, guys. Let's go and tell. Hello and welcome to our roundtable discussion for the occasion of World Water Day. Before I move ahead with the discussion, I want to wish all my viewers a happy World Water Day. A great man once said, "We live in a strange world of language in which skating on thin ice can get you into hot water." It's funny because on a day which was supposed to be celebrating such a great creation of God, we are actually spreading awareness for the same. On that very note, I would like to introduce you to my panelists for today. To make sure, probably years down the line, you would actually end up celebrating the day and not be spreading awareness for the same. First off, we have Param Nair and Ashwin Raghavan. Param Nair and Ashwin Raghavan are students at NPS Indranagar, Bangalore. They have interned at a Delhi-based NGO called Force. That's a NGO for water conservation. They have also made a podcast spreading awareness and exploring the world of water conservation that goes with the name Waves of Water. They have won Best Awards from Government of India 3 times and have been nominated for Namma Bengaluru Awards in Rising Star category. They have reached close to 1 lakh people over a time period of 4 years for spreading awareness on the necessity of water conservation. With that, I give to you Ashwin and Param. Moving on, our next panelist for today, we have Ankita Kaniganti, who is a student at Oak Ridge International. She has been a part of this crowdfunding platform that goes with the name Fuel a Dream from Rotary Bangalore, which focuses on making water wheels, which is a product that helps women carry water from a water body to their villages more efficiently. She has started an initiative called the Backbone Project that focuses on raising awareness on and reducing stigma around child adoption in India. She has worked with an NGO called Swasti that raises awareness on menstrual hygiene in rural parts of India. And amongst all of that, she's also a musician. Well, first off, welcome to the show, guys. I truly appreciate you having you here today. And with that, I would just like to jump to my first question for the day. And that goes to Param and Ashwin. Well, it's been brought to my notice that when you started the very initiative towards rainwater harvesting, I kind of found in the research that it was moreover by accident that you guys went to a competition and then you guys eventually got inspired or moved by something that happened. So first thing, like tell our viewers, what was that competition that actually happened and what is that eventually like motivated you guys to go ahead with the initiative you've taken?
So it was a competition called First Lego League, and it started out with me, Param, and a bunch of our friends who wanted to go to a robotics competition. We were just really interested in building and researching new things. And the interesting thing about this competition was it also had a research component to it. It wasn't just robotics. It wasn't just about the robot. And the theme for that year was hydrodynamics, and it revolved around water. And in our research project, we simply had to find a solution to any problem in the water cycle. And that was pretty interesting. We were, it was almost everyone knows that there is some problem with the environment and water, and we were ready to find out what's, any problem and find a solution for that. But as we did the research, we found statistics and did the math to find out, why the water problem actually exists. we actually found something very interesting. And you'll hear Param and I say this pretty often, is that what we have is not a problem of water scarcity, it's a problem of water management. And since then, for the last 3, 4 years, that's what Param and I have been trying to make other people realize that it is possible to have water security throughout the country, and it is possible to take simple measures to actually ensure that not too much water is wasted. And I mean that's about it, because mostly we have been more constant. I mean, we are concentrating more on rainwater because that is one thing most people can relate with. It's we have, especially in Bangalore, we get more rainwater than we actually need. If we just harvest all of our rainwater, we can satisfy more than 50% of our water needs.
Well, this comes to the point of how. But Param, I also want to know why. Because let's face it, a lot of kids actually get moved by a lot of things lately, but not too many actually bother to do something about it out there. So was there actually a driving factor towards it, or did you like actually have a moment of shift that actually inspired you to go ahead and actually make a difference?
I think, like he said, one of the things that surprised us the most initially was the fact that this was a big problem, and yet we hadn't heard much about it. Everyone learns in school about the water crisis, about the environmental crisis, but it's very rare that you actually hear clear points on what the problems are, what the solutions are. And I'm not talking about solutions which need to be taken at the prime minister's level, the president's level. I'm talking about solutions that people like us can take when we're going out for lunch, or it's a simple change we can make when we're taking a shower, things like these. Because when these things compounded over time, so these are the things that I found were lacking. Like I myself, when we found out about the crisis, we were really surprised, because I mean, we're pretty connected socially, but yet we hadn't heard much about it. So that's one of the primary reasons we wanted to start working towards spreading awareness on this issue, because it was a big issue and not too many people were talking about it, or not too many people were talking about the actual points behind it. Rather, it was a very unclear message, which is why we wanted to get into spreading awareness about this conservation.
On that very note, coming to actually making a difference about something that somebody actually cares about, I would like to come to our next panelist, that's Ankita. Ankita, apart from the fact you do a lot of campaigns, most of which are women centric, but when you came to the campaign that went with the name Fuel a Dream, if I'm not wrong, this was a campaign which also included the issues of women in rural areas, but at the same time, water conservation. How did like that actually inspire you and motivate you to go ahead doing something different? Like not everyone actually thinks of campaigns towards such cause.
Right. So, as a very strong feminist, I've worked with issues, of course, women centric, as you mentioned. So, I mean, Fuel Dream came to school, I think, 2 years ago, and I heard that 40% of these women take, 40% of their time goes into fetching the water. They walk about 4 to 6 kilometers to go to a water body to fetch water and come back. So, I mean, like a lot of time of their day is gone into just going and coming back to what we think is like granted for us, right? I mean, we get water by what going to the tap and filling it, but they walk 4 to 6 kilometers. So I mean, that struck me, and I was really appalled. So once they started crowdfunding, of course, crowdfunding is it's like a easy way to get interacting with people who want to fund these like initiatives and stuff. So I mean, I started calling up people and I started the crowdfunding campaign. I think that's what drives me. The fact that they have to walk 4 to 6 kilometers, and it's not very like easy weight to carry, right? I mean, they carry 10 liters of water in these pots. So, I mean, carrying it back and forth, that's the thing that motivated me to go ahead with this cause.
Well, to all my viewers who actually want to say this, the water wheels, like since school, when I talk about sustainability, the one thing we've actually known about is rainwater harvesting, which comes as like it goes without saying. But actually, when it came down to studying for this very event, I heard about these water wheels that I actually spoke about, and they're actually big containers to make like all my viewers aware of what the water wheel is. It's this huge container in which there's actually a stand to which they hold and
Correct.
actually rolls till wherever they want to
Yeah,
from the
it's
water
a,
body.
it's like almost like a wheelbarrow. So you roll it, and this like drum can carry about 40 to 50 liters. So while they take like 4 to 5 hours carrying the water back and forth during the day, they can make it in like just one trip.
Wow, that's very
Actually,
impressive.
building on something she said, when we ourselves were doing our water conservation work, we'd come across this term called opportunity cost in rural India. And what we found was that these impoverished families, where the women often have to go and fetch water from distant wells or distant sources, there was a study which said that these families are losing lakhs of money over years because the time they spent the time they spent fetching water, they could be working, or they could be doing something else more productive, which is more important to them, especially since the people fetching the water are usually from very poor areas. And we found that this opportunity cost was in the lakhs for a family, and for a poor family, lakhs of rupees can make an enormous difference over a year or over 2 years, right? So I mean, that's something amazing that you've been working on this, because there's so many different fronts to the same issue which you were talking about.
It is, by the end of the day, it's always about like being a better generation. The better generation is all about innovation, and it comes all down to that by the end of the day. But also coming down to the question of social media campaigns or any campaign, as a matter of fact, what is your tip, or what would you like actually like want to say to the young budding youth out there who actually want to put campaigns for a good cause or goodwill? What is your suggestion towards them to put a word out for anything?
I think I can just put it in one word: be passionate about it. As long as once you're passionate about it, I feel like everything just flows, right? I mean, if you know about the cause, you're passionate about the cause, you're aware of the cause enough to like put forth your points. I think from there, campaigns on social media, on any other platform, just flows.
End of the day, you do anything to actually make it happen. As kids, we are stubborn. We've always have been. It goes without saying. But coming down to the next question, it's on the very lines. To actually make an impact, such as all of you have so far, it's always like we've always had a sort of lose factor towards where we had to get by the end of the day. As young budding youths, you have started your whole venture at the age of 15, 16, if I'm not wrong.
13, 14.
13,
Yeah.
14. Okay, even better. So, like, if we come to this fact that people don't eventually take us seriously at the whole point. So, like, how did you guys actually tackle that problem eventually to actually make people to actually listen to you and tell them that this makes a difference out there?
I think the biggest thing is to just start, because when you're passionate about a problem, like she said, and you want to do something about it, people often spend their time looking for the perfect opportunity to tackle it. But the answer is always to just start somewhere, do something. Once you start doing something, the recognition part, people looking up to you, that automatically comes, right? Like when we started back when we were 13, 14, it was hard. Like people didn't take us seriously, we were kids. People would come, take a photo, very cute, and move on, right? But now, over the years, we've started to actually, like, we feel like it's started to make a difference. Initially, maybe not, but if you stop, then it'll never amount to anything. So the answer is to just start and keep doing what you're doing, and eventually people will have to start taking you seriously.
Ashwin, do you see this any other differently? Like, there's always got to be a start, but always there are ways to probably tackle problems which come at you.
Yeah. But I think what Param and Ankita said are very good points. First of all, those are more fundamental points, which is first thing is if you're passionate, of course, I think everything else will fall into place. And even if you start somewhere, you will discover for yourself. But after that, there are certain skills that obviously you learn along the way, which is how to speak much more effectively, how to build confidence. And one of the things that can really help you is one skill that even Param and I are still trying to develop is how to really convince someone of something in a short time, in the short amount of time you have. When we both went to certain national conferences when we were 15 and 16, I mean, we were talking to big suits who would probably have 30 seconds to spare. And you really have to think about, give 2 3 sentences that can actually deliver certain, like, a good amount of impact, because at the end of the day they're going to have to be convinced of it. And if they can be convinced of it, then you can use that, using their resources, it'll go a long way.
Well, I could see no other way, honestly. That's very inspiring to see. And you guys are taking more of an experience than a problem or obstacle coming by your way. But coming to our next question. So take it as a hypothetical situation. Without problems, the world wouldn't be a world. It goes as simple as that. But a hypothetical situation. Take, for example, the basic of disciplines of life, if followed by every single human being. Probably avoiding long water showers, or using a bucket for taking showers, or probably not using a hose and actually like trying to take alternative methods. Do you think if these steps were taken by people normally on everyday basis, you guys wouldn't have the problem of actually taking steps of rainwater harvesting as such?
Um, okay, see, I'm not sure. I don't know exactly. I can't say for sure that, okay, if we did this 50 years ago, we would have no problem now. But when you're talking about these small certain steps that we can take on a daily basis, I think there are 2 points to make here. The first thing is, it's more on simple math. I think both of us can do it together. If we brush our teeth with the tap flowing, that takes about 5 liters of water. If we take it with the tap closed and only take water when we need it, that spends about little less than a liter. And that's about, and since you brush your teeth twice a day, that's about, that's about 8 liters of water that you're wasting. And you multiply that by into 30 for 1 month, that's 240 liters. And again, you for the entire year, that's almost 3,000 liters. And if it's a family of 4, that's already 12,000 liters. So all these small steps, it may seem small when you do it, but what you have to consider is these are the things that accumulate over time. And if you look over an entire lifetime, they can amount to a lot. Now, the second point is that you may say, okay, these are all small things. 13,000 also may not be that much. You can say there are a lot of these big industries that really waste a lot more water, and that a lot of overheads there. We should really focus on them, right? They're like, okay, what are we doing? All these small things we do on a personal level may not amount to much in the grand scheme of things. But what I really like to say about that argument is it's not about these industries are wasting the water, because we are the industry. We are the people who are really making these industries spend a lot of water. When we buy a denim jacket every second month, it's actually us who are wasting about 30,000 liters for each denim jacket, or excessive meat eating or buying fast food, all these fast fashion. It actually starts with us. So when we blame all these bigger things, when we want change to happen from a bigger level, it actually starts with us, because we are what influence them. So it does actually start with these small discipline steps. And that's why we can't really wait for these grander scheme of things to take change before we do.
Well, moving on, Ankita, this is a perspective of an urban, or what would say in Bangalore, a metropolitan perspective. But when we look at villages, probably trying to waste even a single drop of water, like every single drop matters to them because their livelihood depends on that. With comparison to that, what would you say? Would you say anything differently from what Ashwin actually did?
No, I definitely agree that once you're at like a scalable level to like personal level or like a family level, of course you save every drop of water, right? I mean, again, let me bring back the fact that these women walk 4 to 6 kilometers or even more to just get to a water body and get water. Why not save that water? Why not, like us in like urban cities and urban households, why not save that water and at least help them? And of course the water wheel does, but there are different other solutions that of course help these women. And another thing that I want to highlight was that these women in like rural areas, it's not only the women, it's also like people like, I mean, girls, like young teenage girls, they drop out of school to just go and fetch this water. So I mean, their education is at cost, right? So not only the fact that we're saving water for these households, these rural households, but it's also to like impact these young girls in a very positive way.
Of course. Then, amongst all of this, probably an introduction towards the water wheels, which can fetch probably 3 to 4 times of what it normally did in pot waters. How do you see it as a game changer in the coming years? Because not a lot of them have yet actually given it, and we're talking about majority of the population actually depending on agriculture in our country.
Correct. So a lot of these women who have like gotten these wheelbarrows or the water wheels that we call it have honestly seen it as a game changer or seen it as like a positive impact. They spend a lot less time going to fetch water and come back. And again, I said that there are 40-50 liters in the drum instead of carrying 10 kg pots back and forth, right? So again, it's a game changer because while this solution itself may not be that efficient. Again, you don't know the roads, you don't know how efficient it is to roll it back and forth in the rural areas, of course. But it's at least a start. It's a start to show people in the world that, you know what, we can do things a lot more efficiently for rural areas. Again, to look at how the other half lives and at least impact them in a positive way, right?
Well, in the crowdfunding campaign that you actually took part in, well, it was a great success from what I've actually seen. Raising a crowdfunding of close to 25,000, it actually went beyond that.
Correct.
It came down to 35,000.
Yeah.
So, how much investment actually goes into giving, probably, say, for example, one family with the money you've given?
Correct. So I think every 25,000 helps about 10 women in rural areas, and the entire campaign helped about 58 women in 128 families. So I mean, that is just in our school. The crowdfunding campaign happened all across Bangalore in different schools. So just think of it, 58 times how many of the schools will happen, right? So it's quite a lot. And these, they don't only focus on, this was just 1 year. This was like my ninth grade year. This was just 1 year. So Rotary Bangalore comes up with different solutions every single year, and then hence helps a bunch of women entirely.
But coming to a level of groundwork, do you think it would actually be a challenge to actually make them adapt to its usage, or do you think it's actually more simplified? It's actually the most practical thing to do.
It's fairly simple. I think it's an efficient solution for women who are like it's easy for them to use. But again, it did take a while for them to like actually understand the fact that you know what this is going to be a lot more efficient than carrying pots of water. And again, teach them how to roll it across or at least fill the barrels of water. Yeah, it took a while, but other than that, I think it's a fairly efficient solution.
Wow, that's great. That's really great. Well, I want to come down to my next question, which is yet again a hypothetical question, but I actually want to see it in like more of an investment towards the future actually growing in terms of technology or the resources or young minds. For example, all of you. So we know for a fact that 70% of our Earth is water, of which 70% of that water, 97% is salted water, which is of no use to human. I mean, in terms of drinking or personal usages. So in future, if there's actually a solution towards taking over, like which we can actually like simplify it and make this water for our personal use. I'm talking about the 70% of the water, the 97% of the water. Sorry. So do you think it would actually be a problem? Would water actually be a problem to us, or do you think our human greed would actually go beyond taking over and making that also scarce?
I think the first thing to think about when you're looking at using this is that you don't understand something like the water cycle. Uh, if you look at times before the industries came in, the water cycle was simple. It rains, we use that water, the water from the rain goes to rivers, goes back to the seas, from that goes back into the rain, right? But with the rise of industries in the past few years, there's something called consumptive use of water, which is you're taking water out of the water cycle. Something like denim clothes, something like plastic, all of these things take water out of the water cycle. So you're reducing the amount of water which is present in the water cycle. And when you're doing something like taking a long shower, while that's not great for the environment, that water still remains in the water cycle. It's still water. But when you're using water for other things like industries and converting it to different things, it's no longer water, it's out of the water cycle. So, however big your water source may be, if it's an ocean or a lake or whatever it is, first we need to fix this. Unless we fix this, however big your water source is never going to be infinite, and one day it will run out, right? Whether it's an ocean or whether it's the rivers we have today. So we already have desalination of water in the Middle East, which is it's trying to be used. It's still very expensive to be used on a large scale, so we haven't used it much, especially in India. It's impractical. But in the Middle East, they have been trying desalination of water, and it would be a great step for us. It would really help us if we could desalinate water and use it. But that's not the solution. I think that's just prolonging the problem to another day. The solution is getting rid of these consumptive use of water, which take water out of the water cycle. If you take water out of the water cycle, it's our duty to put the water back into the cycle, because without that, 20 years down the line, you won't have any water left to use, right? So I think that's the root cause of problems. If we have desalination of water at a global scale, that would be amazing. It would really help a lot of people, but it's not the solution.
Bottom line, it all compensate down to whatever it is, because with growing human population, there'll still always be a route towards the scarce in terms of water
And
or anything.
Exactly. However big it is, it will run out one day. Unless we fix our lifestyle, unless we change some fundamental things, it will run out unless you change that.
Well, on that very note, then do you think right now, probably government schemes or can be the world as a whole in terms of United Nations or whatever, do you think they should actually have youth taking over, not taking over per se, but at least letting the involvement be more in terms of such initiatives, which increase names in terms of sustainability, for example? Do you think they should have more of that, or do you really feel probably there's still time, probably once the generation takes over, we can actually wait for it?
So I think definitely the youth has to be involved in any a social outreach campaign by the government. And obviously there are a couple of reasons. The first most obvious reason is that the youth is the future, and if you involve them when they're young in these things, when they are leaders tomorrow, they are definitely also going to make a difference, right? Because if their mindset is such now, when they are the ones with the power 20 years 30 years down the line, they will remember that, and that will be their priority, because it becomes a lifestyle over time. So definitely whenever the government takes any steps, they have to involve the youth. And actually another side point to this is that, like, since we are involved in water conservation, we keep hearing about different things the government is doing. For example, I know something called the Jal Shakti program, which the Karnataka government itself is doing. But when I talk to people, I know even people impacted by the water crisis, they've never heard of it. Young people. And that's because when the government does things like these, it's advertising places like newspapers. And the youth nowadays doesn't really read newspapers, right? We use Instagram for us as news source, or Facebook or Twitter, right? That's where we get our news. And it isn't that prevalent there, which is why things like this, which VMove is doing, is so important, because it bridges that gap between what is happening and the information we get. So which is why I feel like panels like this are so important, because this is what the youth actually listens to, right? We use Spotify, we use Instagram, we watch things on YouTube. And when the news and information is there, it connects the gap, bridges the gap. So I think that's really important, because like we said, like this Jal Shakti program, we didn't hear about it until very recently, even though we're involved in water. Because the place it was being published was like, newspapers in the Hindu Times of India. And to be frank, how many of us at our age actually read newspapers every day? I'd say very few of our of people our generation still read newspapers every morning. Like my dad would still probably read a newspaper every morning. I don't remember the last time I read a newspaper, right? I just open Twitter or Facebook or Instagram for my news.
So bottom line, we as millennials should actually like try bonding in terms of certain aspects and come to grounds with the elder ones in order to get authority. But moving on to my next question, and I really can't go beyond without asking this question, Ankita. You put your hands in a lot of campaigns and a lot of things, a lot of social work. But in future, is there any chance we could probably get a music from you in terms of any social goodwill?
I'm still working on the Backbone project as mentioned, right? So the child adoption, that's like my area of music. That's where I want to. I've been exposed to child adoption, and hence that's where my music will come from. And I released, I think, an album last year. So that's one thing that my music is already out. So other than that, we'll see with the.
Well, so you can just say it on the camera if you want, right? No, Spotify, YouTube.
Yeah, it's on Spotify.
Feel free.
Music.
And next thing we know, VIMOV'e Foundation 2023 will be performing, will be open for our next World Water Day. But coming to our last and final question for the day, to be able to connect with our viewers for your future ventures, what is your final word to the audience watching this discussion here today? I'll start with Ankita again. We'll go from here.
So I think as as people in urban households, we're very privileged. We need to see how the other half lives. You know, like change the status quo and look beyond, and hence make a change. I think that's what I'm going to go with.
Nice, nice. Ashwin, I want to come to you next.
Well, if I would really like to reiterate a point that we first began making, which is that the value of small discipline steps that we take on a daily basis cannot be overstated, because the small steps that we take today will be the catalyst for tomorrow's global change. Because when all of us, when especially the youth, take all these smart, certain discipline steps on a daily basis, it becomes part of our lifestyle. And tomorrow, when we are the leaders making decisions and actually making decisions that impact all these things like water, the values that we inculcate doing these small things will have a big impact on how we decide things happen.
Yeah, actually, building on what Ashwin said, like he said that when we take small steps, like a simple example is that since both of us have been involved in water conservation, my mother's a teacher, so she teaches a class of like 50 people, and she heard that and she said it in that class, and some student of hers probably moved the message on. So you don't know how what you say where ends up where and what the impact may be, which is why, like I said before, just start. So yeah, that's just something building on some interesting thing building on what he said. So yeah.
Well, that was really a great session. It was really insightful to actually have you guys here. And with that, I would like to say our discussion has come to an end. And first off, I would like to thank our panelists for being here today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for
And
having us.
all our beautiful viewers who have been supporting us here throughout. Have you guys been seeing this, by the way? They've been here throughout.
My comments.
Yeah. We've got Jay Mangala here, we've got Prakash Rajgoli, and we've got Chandrasekhar. Well, thank you all. If I missed, oh, we got Basil as well. Well, thank you all very much for actually being here today. It really means a lot. But moving on, a beautiful audience here today for actually being able to make it, and probably in future we can actually take it to a more live level if really possible. I would really like that. And finally, I would like to thank Vimov'e Foundation to have given me this opportunity to be here with such mindful panelists, and yet again. And finally, I just want to say to all my viewers on a final note, change does not come eventually with a shift in the smallest of habits. And this being imbibed in our day-to-day lifestyle is the least we can all do to make each other's life easy. Most importantly, for the lives of the future generations. And after this, I think only one thing left to say. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll be really great if you can help out with our social media as well. You can follow us at VIMOV'e Foundation. And you can find all our social media, our panelist social media handouts right on our social media as well. And there's only one thing left to say. This has been your host, Vedanth Shindhe, signing off.